What's up, everybody? It's Joey G. Raw vs. Nitro, Part 4. What's going on, everybody? Montreal Screwjob, 1997. Where do I start with this? Well, you know whose idea it was. It was Triple H's idea. They were all in a room, and they didn't know what to do with Bret. Bret, the year earlier, in 1996, was signed to a 20-year deal. WWE's Attitude Era was taken off. Nitro was still beating them in the ratings, but WWE was slowly climbing. They were slowly climbing, and Vince could see that. And Bret was like the main heel in WWE, if you remember. I mean, except in Canada in '97, he was booed everywhere. I mean, because he straight shitted on the United States. He might as well just whooped out his ass and shit it, because he was just I had a picture. I remember the Hart Foundation all pissing on the American flag. It was a pretty cool picture. Brian Pillman. Rest in peace, like I said, just like Dean Ambrose, but Dean Ambrose is better. Sorry, Brian. But the Montreal Screwjob, straight up, they didn't know what to do with it. Bret just didn't want to lose to Shawn. It was all personal. Bret was just a dick. And I'm not a fan of Bret Hart. I never thought he was the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. I never thought that, never will think that. What do you call it? He might be one of the greatest technical wrestlers ever. But he's just not that guy. He never was the face of the WWE. I always even thought maybe Luger wasn't better than him. But I during that time, I can remember WrestleMania 10, I wanted Luger to win the title. I didn't want to see big fat Yokozuna, and I didn't want to see Bret Hart. I didn't really like Luger. I liked Luger as a bad guy, as a heel. I didn't like him as a Hulk Hogan wannabe, but I did want Luger to win the belt at WrestleMania 10. But that's getting off topic. But the Montreal Screwjob is all about, he didn't want to do business. Now, when you're the champion and you're going out, remember, at this time, Bret Hart's 39 years old. Shawn Michaels is only 30. Yeah, he was 30, 31. Stone Cold was 33. I mean, they were young yet. You know what I mean? Stone Cold, they were gearing the company up to be Stone Cold, and that's what it was. They couldn't work out a deal. You know what I mean? So they tried to get Bret down to a 3-year deal. Bret said no. So then Bret got offered a deal by WCW. He took it. And he said, I'm not losing to Shawn in Canada. What's the big deal if you lose anyway, Bret? The whole world's going to know it anyway. But he refused. Vince tried to come up with Vince Russo, Jim Cornette, even though I can't stand Jim Cornette. You friggin' liberal, you fat, I can't stand your fat, liberal, hillbilly ass. I can't stand you. But, no, what do you call it? They all, Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time, and he was kissing Vince's ass and Shawn's ass then, Shane, JR, even Mick Foley, Taker, they were all like, well, what do we do? You know what I mean? Bret won't lose a title. They said, well, maybe the night before, on Saturday, they had a house show. We'll have a Bret versus Shawn match. Nobody will know. We'll just say that night, and Shawn beats him for the title. The pay-per-view the next night, there was a house show last night in Detroit. Shawn won the belt. Ends up in a big schmoz. Bret comes out on Raw the next night after Survivor Series, says, I can't work here anymore, and walks out. Or, what was supposed to happen was that Bret was going to enter the Survivor Series as a WWE champion, have a good match with Shawn, somewhat like the WrestleMania 12 match, which was nothing compared to this. Actually, I like the Survivor Series match more, because the Survivor Series match, there was so much friggin' controversy. I remember watching that match on pay-per-view. It was friggin' crazy. And what Bret wanted to do, and what Bret thought was going to happen, was he was going to keep the title. Owen was going to run out. Triple H was going to run out. The Anvil was going to run out. Chyna, Rick Rude, the Bulldogs, so on. God rest, Brian Pillman was dead, so, he wasn't coming out. But it was supposed to end up in Big Smosh. And then the next night, Bret thought, not under contract, was going to come out and just go to Shawn and say, I can't work here anymore, and drop the belt. Not give him the belt. Act like he's going to give him the belt and then drop it and walk out. Now, you got to think if you're Vince McMahon. Look what Luger did to you. Walked out in the inaugural Nitro. Look what Medusa did to you. Trashed the belt. Now, personally, I don't think Bret Hart would have did that. But if Eric Bischoff's waving $1 billion in your face to throw a piece of tin in the trash can, I'm sorry, but, I mean, it's business. I think I would do it. I'm being dead honest. So, I mean, what was Vince McMahon going to do? I would do the same. I would have did the same thing, Bret. Bret screwed Bret. If you're a wrestling traditionalist, and I'm not trying to sound like Vince McMahon, you're supposed to champion. But the company that made you, the WWE made Bret Hart. Because when Bret Hart went to WCW, he sucked. I mean, he was only the U.S. champion. He was the world champion, like I said on my other shows, the Raw vs. Nitro shows. When he was champion, his first title reign, he beat Chris Benoit. I mean, when Hogan wasn't in his prime, but Hogan was still like the main draw there. I mean, the main heel, you know, when he was Hollywood Hogan. Savage. I mean, it wasn't like DDP, you know, like it wasn't like Bret or Kevin Nash or Scott Hall or Sting or Goldberg. Like Bret didn't beat none of them. Bret beat Benoit, and every time like he would never fight nobody big. He never fought Hogan. He fought Goldberg, but it ended up in some kind. It was like they tried to make it like the Montreal screw job, and it was so corny. I mean, Bret Hart's run in WCW was horrible, and Bret Hart says it himself. But Bret Hart thinks he's the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Bret, you're not. You can't tie Shawn Michaels' shoe. You were so jealous of Shawn. That's what made WWE watchable in '94 and '95 when I did watch it, '94 and '95. It made it watchable because Bret was so jealous of Shawn. Back to the Raw and Nitro thing. So anyway, Bret gets screwed. The next night on Nitro, or next night on Raw, everybody, it's in Ottawa. Half of the Raw roster didn't show up. I remember Undertaker, all of them. I mean, they were friends with Bret, and they were loyal to the WWE, WWF. They were loyal to Vince McMahon. But I remember, like, Rick Rude, that night it happened, Rick Rude was with DX. I mean, he called Eric Bischoff because he had, like, a real short-term contract with WWE at that time. You remember, he was in ECW calling matches with Joey Styles that summer. He was with the franchise Shane Douglas, another dickhead. What do you call it? You know what I mean? Yeah, Shane, that's right at you, right? And you'll never talk to. I've seen you at the House of Hardcore. I see you at all these indie shows, and you never call me out. I wish you would call me out to shoot Shane Douglas, for real. This is Joey G, the future head of creative at the WWE. Try to walk on my Raw and do something. You see what happens. I'll the Big Show put you through the friggin' floor next time you do some shit like that, Shane Douglas. Suck it. But anyway, the next night on Raw, Shawn gets booed. I mean, DX comes down. It's the first DX video. First time the DX song, "Oh, are you ready?" I mean, like, the fans didn't even know what it was in the beginning until they showed Shawn's face. And then you heard the arena was boo. I mean, like Cena when he came down in Money in the Bank against Punk in the Allstate Arena. I mean, it was bad. I mean, and Triple H and Shawn didn't care. Triple H was drinking a water. You know, they didn't care. They didn't care at all. You know what I mean? Shawn was champion, and that was that. And Nitro, what Nitro's problem is, they had all this heat. I mean, the night before, Bret just spit in Vince's face, trashed WWE's program, punched Vince McMahon in the face backstage. A lot of people say it's a work. X-Pac kind of thinks it's a work. One of my favorite wrestlers, Sean Waltman. Yeah, and I do say it a lot all the time. So you can quote me on it. You can poke a stick. You can break my balls that I say the Click. I like the Click, but the Click is my favorite wrestlers. They are. And besides Triple H, he's the only one I'm iffy about because he's on that power trip. But, you know, moving into 1998, the momentum was definitely going WWE's way. If you can remember, as I said last night, Vince McMahon made that statement, good guys versus bad guys. Like, it's passé. I mean, they were in the era where they were going to make Stone Cold the top guy, and that was the whole plan. Shawn didn't want to give up the title at WrestleMania 14. I mean, Steve Austin says it in his DVD. Steve Austin says it in Shawn Michaels' DVD, Heartbreak and Triumph. Shawn did not want to give up that belt. And you got to remember, Shawn was wrestling with a broken back, addicted to painkillers, Vikes, Perks, Oxys, plus he was drinking. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, are you smoking weed? But, you know, I don't consider smoking weed a drug. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion. I'm not going to go any further with that. But, I mean, with the alcohol and the painkillers, I mean, I was making Shawn loopy. And, you know, he was partying a lot. So, you know, he was saying crazy stuff. But that was the best Shawn Michaels there was. When he was a heel, if you can remember, I'm going off Raw and Nitro. This is way after Nitro was off. In 2005, when he went in that Hulk Hogan feud, SummerSlam 05, that was the best I saw Shawn in so long. I mean, he was just great on the mic. He was that Shawn Michaels from 1992, 3, 4, and 1997, 1998. And then he came back and he was this big baby face. I still like Shawn. He still had the, you know, he was still defiant. He was still that DX Shawn, the suck it thing. Him and Hunter got the DX thing going. But the DX from 2006, you can't even compare it to the original DX. And I'm not talking about the DX with X-Pac and the Outlaws. I'm talking about Ravishing Rick, Shawn, Hunter, and Chyna. Them four. The real DX. That's the best D-Generation X. Remember when Shawn was like, they keep calling us degenerates. I'm tired of Degeneration X getting a bad rap. Are you a degenerate? Well, I'm certain I'm one. That's what we are. We're Degeneration X. That's the real Degeneration X. Shawn, Ravishing Rick, Hunter, and Chyna. The real DX. Alright, but Raw started to get the momentum. And by WrestleMania 14, Kevin Nash made that phone call to Kevin Sullivan. And I remember Kevin Nash said to Kevin Sullivan, I was watching it on YouTube. Kevin Nash said to Kevin Sullivan, did you see that show last night that they did? Kevin Sullivan said, but it's Boston accent. Man, I can't really do a good Boston accent, but he said, yeah, I saw it. And something like, we're done. We're sinking in the water now. We're done. They put on a great show. I mean, after Shawn lost, I mean, you had Mike Tyson double-cross DX. Then you had Tyson, I mean, like, it was Shawn, I mean, he does not like being shown up. I mean, he took that punch, went right down. I mean, it was just so, that punch, like, kind of ruined, I mean, that moment, the Stone Cold era has begun. When JR said that, that took the WWE skyrocket. It just went to the top from there. When JR said, the Stone Cold era has begun, Stone Cold was on the ropes, and he gave Mike Tyson a Stone Cold t-shirt, and that was Shawn's last match. Shawn went home. But Shawn Michaels was the reason, because of the Attitude Era. Shawn Michaels was the reason that Raw started beating Nitro. And Shawn left that night. He wasn't even on Raw the next night. X-Pac joined DX the next night on Raw. If you remember X-Pac, he made that great promo where he said, I heard Hulk Hogan come out here on TV and say, I can't cut the mustard. And he said, Hulk Hogan, you suck. And if you better watch out because Eric Bischoff will go up your ass so far, he'll know what you had for breakfast. And he said, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall will be standing right here with us if he wasn't being held hostage by World Championship Wrestling. And that's a fact, Eric Bischoff. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. I mean, JR was even saying, we're going a little over the line here, everybody. You know, it was getting great, and you could just tell WWE was getting that momentum. And I was there April 13th, 1998, because my birthday's April 14th. And so that was my 21st birthday. I was 20 years old, right before I was 21. I went to that Raw. And that was the first Raw since June 12th, 1996, that beat Nitro. So from June 12th, 1996 to April 13th, 1998, Nitro beat Raw. And Raw won. That's when Vince had Stone Cold put the arm behind his back, tie it, and, you know, Stone Cold still would have whooped his ass. Then Dude Love came down, tried to, you know, and it was a conspiracy, and I'll talk about that tomorrow on Raw vs. Nitro Part 5. This is Part 4. And, you know, of course, you know, Vince shoves Dude Love down, and then Dude Love accidentally puts the mandible claw on Stone Cold, and that starts a feud because Shawn was out. But Shawn started that Attitude Era. Shawn started the bad attitude, the meanness. He started it all. You know, he started to suck it. And then Triple H did pick up and kept DX going. And WWE went to higher, you know, better limbs. This is Part 4. I'm going to have 2 more shows. Part 5 and Part 6. Because pretty much after this, I mean, Raw pretty much, I mean, after this year, 1998, Raw pretty much crushed Nitro. So it's not going to be that much to go through. But they still will be good because Joey G does make it great and good storytelling. Still got some good stories to tell you, like David Arquette winning the WCW World Title. Gay. This is Joey G. Raw, Nitro versus Raw, or Raw versus Nitro. I put who won. Raw versus Nitro, Part 5 tomorrow night. Tune in. This is Joey G. I'm out. Catch Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 already on YouTube. This is Joey G. I'm out. Peace.